Hmm? Ah! Oh.
Well, hey there, you. Yes, I mean you. Have you just finished watching an episode of your favorite television program, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel? Are you looking for a podcast to enhance your viewing experience? Well, look no further. Welcome to Perfectly Marvelous. Join our hosts Erica, Kara, and Jade as they provide you with hours of witty banter, behind-the-scenes fun facts, and oh, so much more. Now sit back, relax, and get ready for a perfectly marvelous time. And 1, 2, 3, over hill, over dale, we will hit the dusty trail, and the caissons go rolling along. Good evening, folks, comedy lovers. Welcome to the show. I'm Jade.
I'm Erica.
And I'm Kara.
And this is Perfectly Marvelous, a podcast dedicated to the critically acclaimed Amazon Prime show, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Today we are covering episode 1, 2, and 3 of the 5th and final season.
Woo! Woo, guys. And episode 1 is titled Go Forward. Episode 2 was It's a Man World. And episode 3, Typos and Torsos.
And now, without further ado, let's start the show.
All right, girls, you ready? Tits up!
Tits
up!
Now I've this perfectly marvelous girl in my perfectly beautiful room, and we're living together and having a marvelous time.
All right, the time has come. I feel like I've waited a lifetime for this, you know? The 5th and final season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel has officially arrived. And they gave us 3 fucking episodes all at once, a day early. Oh, yeah. Christmas in April, right? Just for our listeners, I know that it's marked in your podcast feed. This is an explicit podcast. Little ears, listen at your discretion. Just wanted to say that off the top because I just realized I started us off with a good fuck. But they say fuck in this show, so fuck. Yeah, right. There was an interview with the cast and Rachel Brosnahan. They were asked, "What's your favorite curse word?" And Rachel Brosnahan said, "There's nothing like a good fuck." I don't know. That
Nice.
Just popped into my brain. Anyway, so. Listeners, we decided that because there have been 4 amazing seasons already, doing a full recap of each season was just it was just too much to take on. As much as I would love to, there's just the time that would take. Maybe in the future we can go back and, when we're nice and calm after we finish the 5th season and we just are missing some Maisel, we can have another podcast of a rewatch of all the 4 seasons. I would never be opposed to doing that. But
Sure.
as far as recapping goes right now, I just wanted to start this podcast by talking about, why we love the show. I want to ask you guys, looking back on seasons 1 through 4, what moments stand out to you? What do you love about the show? Why do you keep watching it? Characters that you love, I just want to hear what you guys think and what brought you here to do this podcast now. So, Kara, let's start with you. Kick it off.
So basically, I think anything Amy Sherman Palladino, I will watch. I loved watching Gilmore Girls, and as soon as I heard about Mrs. Maisel, I was like, I know I'm going to like this show, but I didn't know I was going to love it as much as I do. Mm-hmm. And I think just, kind of taking Amy Sherman Palladino off of network TV and getting a little bit more of the cursing and some more adult themes definitely helped.
Oh, yeah.
But I cannot get enough of the interaction between Midge and Susie. And everybody else has just been a kind of really pleasant surprise. So that's what I love about it. It's just the comedic timing, the wit, and all of the historical references. The aesthetics of the show I'm obsessed with.
Totally.
I could put it on mute and just have it in the background while I work. But it's just everything about it and all the historical references. Every time I understand one, I just kind of pat myself on the back. So that makes me happy.
I know.
But let's see. Fave characters. Is that something that you had said?
Yeah, I would love to hear
Gosh. I think overall, Midge and Susie are kind of just a given. But other than that, Tony Shalhoub as Abe is by far my favorite. Like, I could listen to him talk about pretty much anything as Abe. So I already, like, I had to stop myself from writing down every single Abe quote from the first 3 episodes. So
that. Same but double. Double goes for me.
Yeah. Ugh, that was really hard. And then let's see, favorite moments over the season or the seasons. That was really hard, and I was putting a lot of thought into it doing my rewatch. But the first season, I feel like it's hard not to pick either her initial kind of appearance at the Gaslight after she finds out about Penny Pan and is, you know, tits out at the Gaslight and gets arrested. I was like, I think that was just one of the best pilot episodes I've ever seen. So season 2, I think the fever dream of the Palladinos, that was the Catskills. Just the entirety of that was amazing. But specifically, I think Susie's experience of the Catskills. The
plunger.
One, just like walking around. I can't remember what she named it.
It's going to pop into my head when I least expect it. Yeah.
But like, and when they thought she was missing, and they find her and she comes back and she's just like, oh, like, you know, it was rough out there. Like, Susie in the Catskills was probably my favorite. And then I think season 3 was one of those where overall, I think the cultural shift that we got to see in season 3, moving out of the 50s into the 60s, was probably my favorite. That's kind of a cop-out because it wasn't really a moment. It was the whole season. But I thought it was impactful.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had a hard time with season 4 picking something out because I really did enjoy season 4. But I think the finale episode with Lenny kind of calling Midge out, like, what the fuck are you doing? Not doing, you know, an opening act for Tony Bennett. It kind of reminded me of Jess coming in and talking to Rory and Gilmore Girls. I think it was season 6 after she dropped out of Yale. It was kind of like the whole, why did you drop out of Yale? Translated to, you know, why did you turn this down at Carnegie Hall opening for Tony Bennett? So I thought it was kind of a nice little wake-up call, especially because it's not just a man coming in and directing Midge where to go. It's someone who truly sees her and, you know, appreciates her. And her talent.
And still finds her funny.
Thank
First
goodness.
and foremost.
Absolutely. That was a lot of word vomit, but
no,
I could go on and on.
Yeah.
But I think those are the main things that really have stuck with me over the years.
Yes. I totally, everything you're saying, I'm like, oh yeah, that was good too. Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite. That's my favorite. Like, oh man. It's so hard to just choose. Yeah, like this show would be so easy to just gush over for hours and days and weeks. And yeah, I just wish I had more time to talk about every season. I feel like in the future, though, I can't help but not go back. Yeah. It's just too good. This show is just too good.
It really is.
And they're good at callbacks, so I'm sure we'll have plenty of things to pick out and talk about.
Yep. All right, Erica, what about you?
I had the same problem, and I feel like Kara might have pulled every single one of my favorite moments, but that's okay because it's so lush and so full of so many things. But, you know, I am a Amy Sherman Palladino virgin to the other shows. I know about them. I feel like I get the pop culture references to everything. I know who they are. I know who Rory is, but I was drawn to this because I love period pieces. I love the aesthetics of the show. I love the color. It like looks like a musical every time I watch it. And I just love the one shots and just the banter going back and forth. It's just, you cannot imagine how much work was put into it to have that amount of dialogue with no breaks. And it's just so funny. And I tend not to watch comedies. I tend to watch more drama or like what are we watching? Like all these zombie shows and different things, fantasy. And then there's this like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which is so not like what I'm typically watching. And it's kind of a little bit of a breath of fresh air. It's lovable.
But you're a theater person,
yes.
Erica. So that's why I don't know any actors who don't love this show.
Yeah. And I think that is, I appreciate it so much. I appreciate the craft, and I appreciate every aspect of the show, from the people who do the dressing of the shows to the costumers. Just every single thing about it is it's a beautiful, beautiful show. And it's hilarious. Going into like my favorite moments, I'm like, oh shit, I have to think about this. But, just thinking about that very first episode, the pilot of it, and just thinking about like where Midge started from the very beginning with her brisket, and how she was kind of playing the part of the doting wife, and like just, scurrying and supporting Joel in every little thing, like backing him up, telling him what he should do. And then like, just what an asshole and arrogant and like, little man ego it was to have that, like, that what happens toward the very end of it. But I'm trying to think back of like other things that happened, but I think I am always, of course, drawn to that pilot episode that just kind of shows this not even the rise and fall, but just like this kind of like, wow, this is where she comes to, and just how she finds herself, and how Susie finds her, and how they find each other. And it's beautiful. It's probably one of the most beautiful love stories in cinematic television shows ever is Midge and Susie.
Yeah, Alex Borstein calls it a womance instead. How guys have bromance.
Yes, and we should say womance a lot, so she gets a lot of the royalties too.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, she gets the credit for that one.
Yeah, and I thought about season 2. I also, besides the Catskills, which was, and I keep on thinking about to the moment when she's at the hotel and she's doing her present, and she's got a really big audience. Like, I mean, really, if you think about how little time has passed, and she went from the guests like to this big, huge audience in the Catskills at a hotel, and then she starts into this set, and she starts talking, and then she goes into this extremely X-rated conversation that goes into talking about her papa when she notices Abe in the audience, and you're just like, the secondhand embarrassment is so deep in this show that I'm like, oh no, I'm like covering myself. I'm like, I can't handle this. But it was just like, when she gets discovered by her dad, and then just kind of how she has to kind of play into that it's pretty relatable. Like when your parents realize what you do on a Saturday night. And then, and then of course I know, Jade, you and I talked about this, and I believe this is season 2, and I hope, when she worked at B. Dalton's. Was that season 1 or season 2? My brain is starting to
She worked at B. Altman's in both season. Yeah. I think it was the end of season 1, beginning of season 2, and then she still had the job a little bit into season 3, I think.
I have to rewatch it again, because I did a second rewatch, but that one scene where it just swoops right into, and you could see all the different actors are just moving around, and it's like choreographed, and they hired like
with
real
the switchboard.
Yes,
and that was all. It was a oneer. It was all in one take.
That was season 2.
Yeah,
it was the very beginning of season 2, and I was just like jaw dropped. I fucking love this show.
That moment
Holy
just
shit.
Beautiful.
Yes, it took my breath away. Was that scene?
It's choreography. It's Amy Sherman Palladino. She was a dancer. And that was her first. Was her first like art form. That's what she was pursuing, so everything she does has this rhythm to it. Her writing is so rhythmic, and I feel like every chance they get to incorporate musical numbers, music of any kind, and when it comes to stuff like that, I remember they were like hanging snowflakes in the window of B. Altman, and it's like you're watching a Busby Berkeley-esque old school, they don't make shit like this anymore, kind of musical intro, it feels like an MGM epic picture, motion picture, like
meet me in St. Louis, where is Judy Garland? Bring me out.
And they reference My Judy every chance they get, and I love it so much. Yeah,
I know.
Judy was in the trailer to season 5, and when I heard that, I was like, oh, I love this show. Yep.
They're speaking to us. They're
happy.
like, this was made for just us, right?
Yeah. I'm like, Judy Garland, a show made for Jade. Like, you give me some Judy, you got me sold.
And then in season 3, I had to think about it because that was that one weird season, but I actually enjoyed it. But I think my
That was
favorite
the one weird season.
that season 3
Yeah.
where she's
It was
touring
a
with
weird season.
Shy, and then I remember like when Midge taught Susie how to swim. That
Oh my
whole
God,
sequence,
all right.
the overall.
Now I got to change mine.
I mean, the suspenders and those pants and her it just like the
my God, you're so
comedy.
right.
And again, just the entire, like, the Florida set, Midge's hair. I totally felt that because like humidity is my biggest enemy too. But when she taught Susie how to swim, I'm like, this is it. It was just amazing.
And there's an interview where they both talk about shooting that and how miserable it was for both of them because they're both so pasty white. And they were like, we got scorched that day. And I guess Alex Borstein was wearing wool pants. They took these pants, and she said it was her idea to be like, let's just cut these shorts or these wool suspender whatever pants into shorts, and I'll wear that as my bathing suit. And she's like, 2 seconds into it, I was like, big mistake. Why did I suggest this?
Brilliant, but big mistake.
Swimming in wool pants like that, like how uncomfortable must that be? And then it's so funny because she was supposed to get sunburned really bad in that episode, and she's like, oh, I got sunburned like terribly. And she's like, and I feel really bad for the background actors because we were constantly, taking breaks and slathering us with sunscreen, but like no one cared about the background actors. They just fried in the sun. I'm like, I can imagine that. Yeah. Sorry. I'll try to.
The interjecting is great because it just feeds. Because again, like there's so much content and so many amazing moments that I'm like, God, how do I pick one? When I went into season 4, and again, like that
was a weird season too. Season 4 was weird.
But there was like, I loved the Waldorf. I loved how Midge fixed it. I loved how Lenny and Midge's relationship kind of built up, and they just weren't giving us fan service by having them sleep with each other like right away. But the moment I keep on like kind of going to is when Abe got out of the car and he spun with that cape. That cape was a character in its own.
Abe's
cape. And that whole scene that just like that like led into like the demise of their of that young playwright, and then how they were like kicked out of the bar mitzvah. It just like that whole little scene, and that kind of went to that. That was like, it was hilarious. But yeah, his cape. I need a cape. I need a twirl like Abe.
And then I remember there was a moment where they had to walk out. I can't remember what it was. Oh, it was at the all the Jewish people were angry at Abe because he wrote the bad review about the guy's play
in the bar mitzvah. Yeah,
and he got Rose and they walked out all together and everyone was looking at them. I think it was at a bar mitzvah, and he goes, God, I wish I had my cape.
It was so funny. And then, I mean, I like just like where they're going at. And even so, like I had no idea what we were going to see when I watched episode 1 of season 5. But then that's something we're going to segue into anyway.
Yeah.
So what about you, Jade? Let's see what you could add to.
Well, oh gosh. So I want to echo, both of what you guys said for sure. I love this show because it is theater. It is theater on film. Like I said, it's like an MGM musical that we just don't get. It doesn't get made anymore. Musicals are so different now. There have been very few films that have come out that I'm like, man, that is classic Hollywood stuff right there going on. You know what comes to the top of my mind is like the film The Menu, which is super controversial. I know a lot of people thought that was weird. A lot of people didn't like it. I was constantly reminded of how much this feels like classic Hollywood, that film. And as much as I didn't like parts of it, I guess there's an essence to it that is it pays homage to the great films, like Casablanca and what I'm trying to say is shows that can know where it came from. God, I'm articulating myself terribly right now. It's like my moment and I'm just like tripping all over my words. What I mean is Amy Sherman Palladino and her wife, her husband, Daniel Palladino, they have such respect for film, and they have such respect for classic film actors and the writing. What I mean is, like, you don't see writing like this, and you don't see epic quality stuff like this on television made all the time. The attention to detail, like you were saying, Erica, about the sets. New York, I just love New York. Anything based in New York. I live in New York, which is, you'd think that I would want to escape from that, but no, especially New York in the 50s, 60s, they do such a good job of capturing that. It transports me. And as an actor myself, listeners, sorry, I'm going to be talking a lot about acting stuff. I'm going to be talking a lot about behind the scenes stuff. I'm going to say the word, the sentence, as an actor. I'm going to say that a lot. So get used to it,
and
because that's the perspective that I'm going to bring. Yeah. So, I have a hard time a lot of times getting lost in what I'm watching, because I'm constantly thinking, oh, how that's acting right there. I can see them acting. I can almost hear the pages of the script flipping in the background. You can tell that things are done on a set. You can tell that, oh, look at that background actor. I get so distracted, and it's very hard for me to totally just get lost in something and immersed in it and believe what I'm seeing. And this show does the impossible in the way that it takes something so heightened and so absurd and so, like, what? That would never happen. And I completely believe that this is actually the truth, that these people are real. I don't know how they do it. So yeah, the costumes, the attention to detail with the background actors, the script, and of course the amazing chemistry between the actors, especially Susie and Midge and Abe and Rose. And this show, as an actor, it makes me want to act. It inspires me so much. Since I've started rewatching the show to get ready for this podcast, I have gotten more work than I have in months. And I think it's because in the back of my mind, I've got this driving motor kicking me in the butt, going like, come on, Rachel Brosnahan can do it. Come on, Jade, let's go. Like, I'm the same age as she is. And it's like, I have this such intense love for her. And at the same time, this actor jealousy of her, like of the whole cast, like, I want that. I want to be on a show like that, Hopefully soon.
They're going to be your drive. They're going to make you go forward.
It really is. This show inspires me. It really it inspires me as an artist, and I never tire of it. I could watch it over and over and over again. So getting to a couple of my favorite moments, I want to play for you a little clip from season 1, because I was going to try to like transpose it and then say it, because I love, saying great lines myself. But the Sophie Lennon moment from season 1, God. This is probably my favorite moment. That whole scene with Sophie Lennon where Midge goes to her house and Sophie starts, really picking Midge apart and kind of shattering her image of, you need a shtick. What's your angle? I got my fat suit and I'm Sophie from Queens, and like, what do you do? And she goes, I'm just me. Like, I'm literally, that's my shtick, is I'm me. And Sophie's like, oh, that's not going to work. You gotta have a gimmick. And she goes, well, Bob Hope doesn't have a gimmick. And she goes, he has a dick. You got a dick. And you can see Midge's like world kind of shifting and shattering and changing. And Sophie really just blows her mind. And what Jane Lynch does with that whole character is, it's epic, but this is my favorite part. I remember very vividly watching this scene with my mama, and after we had both fallen completely in love with the show, and we were just, binging the crap out of it. And this scene came up, and we both died laughing at this moment, and we immediately had to play it over again. So hopefully you can hear this. Let me turn it up. Okay, this is it.
Tour after we eat.
Terrific. I'd love to see the kitchen.
The kitchen? Really? Why?
Because I love kitchens.
Really? Kitchens? Why?
They're neat.
To be honest, I haven't been in our kitchen in quite some time. I'm on the road. I'm upstairs. But if it means that much to you, we'll find it. Ready for tea.
Really? Kitchens? Why?
They're neat.
I don't know why that tickles me so much. I'm on the road, I'm upstairs, but if it means that much to you, we'll find it. I can't. There are no words. The way she fucking delivers that, man, it killed me. It killed me. So that's my favorite moment I think that is my favorite moment of the entire show. And I don't think anything's going to top that. Really? Kitchens? Why? Just gets me. So that's my favorite moment from season 1. And season 2, I think the best moment is that family dinner, that Yom Kippur dinner in episode 7. Oh, they do these family dinner scenes so well. They do it again in season 4, episode 3, right after Jackie dies and Susie's at the dinner with her whole family in her PJs and Zelda's crying because she didn't make enough squash. They're like, Zelda, why are you crying? And she's like, I didn't make enough squash. I'm just so happy.
Oh God.
But
yeah, you're right. Even the dinner with when they thought the one coworker, the one that died, and they made all of the soft foods, but he had
God, yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
You're so right. I think we could talk about all the meals.
Their family dinners. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that Yom Kippur dinner where Midge is trying so hard to come out as a stand-up. And Zelda keeps wanting to come in and out with her, and she's like, I spend all my day cooking this meal, and it's just sitting there turning to nothing. Like, and Moisha is just like heckling the crap out of Midge, like, tell a joke, one joke.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but that joke was a stinker. Like, you're just not very funny. Like, he just refuses to believe that Midge is funny, and Astrid is just being Astrid. I mean, that whole scene. As an actor, I'm watching this just like with my mouth on the floor, just so giddy with excitement, you know?
Well, and I think that's something too, like Amy Sherman Palladino, like family dinner scenes.
Yeah,
you think back to Gilmore Girls,
Yep.
like everything with Kelly Bishop and Lauren Grit, like all of that is just so spot on. Whatever they've done, they figured out how to do family dinners.
Family dinners, yeah.
spectacularly.
Gilmore Girls, that was a huge thing. Yeah, yep. And she loves, Amy Sherman Palladino loves food on camera, which I know as an actor, having done a lot of food scenes, it's like, it looks so good. I love watching food scenes, you know? I don't know why. I think a lot of people do. But acting them you dread it. But anyway, that whole scene was, I mean, go back and if you can only rewatch one thing from season 2, let that be it. And season 3 it was crazy season. There was a lot of like unique and experimental camera work. In episode like 5 and 6, I remember they did that Loco Amor music video, and then that Busby Berkeley synchronized swimming thing. They did a lot of really grand, just huge dance numbers, and they used the camera in such cool ways. They were really, I mean, they were getting more money, obviously. And there was an example that I can think of when in episode 8, when Imogene was walking down the street of New York in a crowd to the song Feeling Good, and it was like slow motion. Imogene was like walking dead straight to the camera when she was going to be going to secretary school. And I think that probably my favorite moment, though, because my favorite character is Maren Hinkle as Rose. This woman, oh God, I die for her. I need the spinoff with Abe and Rose. I mean, Tony Shalhoub too, but if I had to choose a favorite character, I feel like it's Rose every time for me. Everything she does, this woman just gets me, man. I feel like I relate the most to her character, oddly. I don't know, even though I'm nothing like Rose, there's so much of Rose that I'm like, oh, I see myself in you. I don't know. Even though I'm so not a Jewish mother, like, I don't know. But when she fangirls over Shy Baldwin and she gets trashed, it is very hard to act drunk. It is very, very hard. And she does it so well when she's like, I love you, Shy Baldwin. Oh my God. And season 4, best moment. I think that episode 3, the episode might be my favorite episode of the series, when Susie goes to work with Rose at the tea room
Oh my god.
after
The whipped
Jackie
cream?
dies. Yeah. Yeah. And she gets the whipped cream and Susie, and I could just eat it? Doesn't have to go on anything? That's right. Rose Weissman, I would follow you into hell. That won't be necessary. And then they call that back. Obviously, we'll get to that. But yeah, in episode 3 is when they go to the theater and Abe wears that cape. That's in there too. Oh my gosh. And another great moment is when Rose, my Maren Hinkle, is she's hypnotized doing Midge's stand-up act.
Oh, that's
That
so good.
was incredible. So I have a lot of favorite moments from season 4. I don't remember loving season 4 the first time I watched it as much as I couldn't believe how much I loved it on rewatch.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, this is better than I remember for some. I don't know why it didn't hit me, or I don't remember that it hit me really when I watched it the first time. But I thought season 2 was my favorite. I guess season 2 is my favorite season as a whole, but season 4 has so many of the best moments.
Oh yeah.
Even though
There's
it's a very
lot
weird
of character
season.
development and relationships change and
Yeah,
there's a lot
yeah.
moving.
That's true.
And then I guess I gotta just honorable mention everything Sophie Lennon, Jane Lynch does when she plays Miss Julie. That whole Miss Julie storyline. Oh my God, it killed me. And then there's obviously when the scene with Alex Borstein when she yells at Sophie and kind of dumps her on the sidewalk outside the theater after Sophie blows it on stage. That was just an incredible piece of acting. So I could go on and on about my favorite parts of this show, but yeah, I feel like we should move on to the main event here, and start talking about season 5. First of all, I just want to say I feel very blessed to be here with you two ladies. I feel like we didn't really introduce ourselves very well at the top, but you're going to get to know us, listeners, as we continue on. So we're going to skip all the formalities for this. We're just going to dive in because we got so much content to get through, and I don't want to make this an 8-hour podcast, even though it'll probably be close to that. So let's dive in. Let's start talking about season 5.
Yay.
So I just want to say at the top here, something I was really inspired to do for this podcast, and a big reason why I wanted to do this podcast is I love research. That's why I'm an actor. I love to research characters and times, period pieces, New York in the late 50s, early 60s too. I absolutely can't get enough of the comedy scene and the real life inspiration behind the characters that we're seeing. I'm loving all of this stuff. So that's what you can expect on this podcast, listeners, for sure. In this episode, however, I found myself continually needing to remind myself to just focus on the content of these first 3 episodes. So that it doesn't go, my time is more wisely used, and so that the episode isn't too long. And we only got these 3 episodes a few days ago, and we kind of made the executive decision to cover all 3 at once so that we can go week to week with everyone else, with all the listeners. So I didn't have as much time as I would have liked to properly research the backstory of the characters, and there's just so much content out there, so many great interviews, a lot of news articles. So all of that stuff is going to be definitely coming at you in later episodes. But for this episode, just for me and my notes and everything, I'm mostly going to focus on just the show itself. And in the future, when we have only 1 episode at a time to talk about, and it's, we have time, it's going to feel much more chill. We'll definitely be incorporating as much behind the scenes news and interviews and real history of New York and the comedy scene, all of that as much as possible. So that being said, let's start with episode 1, Go Forward. Written and directed by Amy Sherman Palladino, the one and only. And so we're going to kick it off with a little segment I like to call The Most Marvelous Moment.
Dawes?
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't that marvelous?
So let's start with Erica. What's your most marvelous moment for this first episode?
I don't know if this was Amy's intention, but when the episode started, I thought I had the wrong show on. I'm like, what is wrong with my Prime?
Yeah.
I'm like, what is this? This girl's wearing a Ramones shirt. And then I just kind of started hearing the cadence of her voice and just the mannerisms and even the way she looked. And I'm like, and then he called her Esther. And I'm like, oh my God, we've been just we went time traveling and had a huge major time jump, 20 years or so
Yeah.
into a 25-year-old Esther in her therapy session with some major mommy issues, which we've all been talking about for years, about Midge is not mom of the year, but that's okay. I totally get as a working mom, you got that parent guilt sometimes, but yeah, it definitely had some effect on her kiddos. Just some things I kind of like recognized was the fact that, and I think of the actor, and I apologize if I had her name wrong. Let me see if I had it here. I didn't write it down. My gosh. Alexandra Soka, or no, I think I wrote her name wrong. But I'm going to have to look for that.
Who did she play?
She played Esther.
Oh, yeah.
Was it?
Sounds right.
That's, Alexandra Socha or Soka.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. I thought I might have wrote it wrong. But I thought that she must have studied and studied and studied, because I was like, kind of just like the whole time, I think my jaw was on the floor. I'm like, what am I watching? What am I experiencing? The show just started and I'm like so overwhelmed and just like so completely confused. I felt like I was Esther for a minute, because she is like so high anxiety, like Abe on speed.
Yeah.
Just like going all over a mile a minute about her troubles, her struggles, her needs for some meds. But how brilliant she is. She's an MIT. NASA's begging for her to come. And her therapist pretty much really has a good hand on her, just to kind of see like what she needs. But I was just really taken aback by that, like just slap in the face, like, bam, here's a time jump. Who is this person? And kind of like, it was a little uncomfortable, but, and it didn't feel like an episode. But then again, I feel like all the time jumps made me really uncomfortable and felt like it took me out of the show a little bit. But it was definitely an interesting, crazy moment. And I liked it much better on second watch, because I was really just so like overwhelmed by the change. And I was overwhelmed and a little nervous to be out of 1960. It was just so different.
Totally.
Yeah.
It caught me very off guard, but I was stunned at the way that Alexandra Socha, I should have researched how to say her name. I hate knowing that I'm saying an actor's name wrong, so I'm probably saying it wrong. But I can't believe how much she reminded me of Midge, how she caught, like, they could not have picked a more perfect, this is her daughter. At first I was like, wait, is that Rachel Brosnahan? I'm like, wait, what? What am I watching?
It did
like you
really
said,
look like her.
I couldn't. Yeah, it was crazy. Just the way everything, her voice, her facial expressions, it was perfect casting. Perfect.
Well, and I think she picked up a lot of Tony Shalhoub too.
Yeah,
and it's funny because she said it was like a one-liner. Abe was the one who she could talk to.
Grandpa was the only one she could talk to. Yeah,
and I was just like, this is so good already. Like she just embodied them perfectly. But I definitely want to talk more about that scene.
Yeah, definitely. Too. Yeah. And and I know this is jumping up a little bit, but this episode is called Go Forward, and they literally had us go forward 20 years. But it even, and I don't know if it was in episode 2 or 3, and I apologize, is that even though I really hate that they aged Esther so much in this time jump, in the younger Esther, she's just, I mean, wasn't Esther like a year old, and now she's like a 4-year-old?
The way children age on television, and they got a whole nother actor to play Ethan.
Yeah.
Because that kid, he was getting way too big for,
he was. He can't be a kindergartner anymore.
No.
But I'm thinking about that scene as just kind of the type of person Esther is really, as a young child to this, this adult, is that when Midge took her and put her in bed with her, which I was like, oh, I have totally done that. And Esther is like, forget that, went right back into her bed. Yep. It's like, as young as that, you could see that there was this real rift in their relationship that started as even as young as she was back then.
Yeah.
So what were your thoughts on it, Kara?
On that whole Esther scene?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Well, we'll get into that. First, let's do Marvelous Moment. Stick with there, because that's,
I will talk about that for a while for sure. But for Marvelous Moment, I had a hard time with this one because there's so many to pick from, but I decided to just go with the one that made me laugh the loudest.
Mm-hmm.
And with Astrid, sometimes like I feel like her lines, like they're just like little throwaway lines here and there, and if you don't like pay that close attention, you'll miss them. But when she is taking care of, what is it, Haim, their baby,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, it's all kind of hectic and frenetic, and there's a pause, like a dead spot, and then she just goes, "How often do you all cry?"
Yeah.
And I lost my shit.
Yeah.
I felt that.
What
I
it
felt that
was.
deeply. I felt that.
Yep. And I was like, "Oh, Astrid," but like it made so much sense, and the way she delivered it was just perfect. I was really happy to see her back.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Astrid
That
is
was
played by
fun.
Justine Lupe, and she kills me. The way that she talks is so funny. The way she says things, when she said, "Don't worry, Daddy isn't abandoning you. Don't be scared." She has this like cartoony kind of voice, that everything she says is so funny. And there's something that she said to Abe, which was almost my favorite moment, when she said something like, I don't think so," or she said something about what she thinks, and Abe goes, "Yes, but you are not a great thinker."
Yep. That was great.
Abe is just like over Astrid.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
Astrid is having a time of being a new mommy. She wanted it so bad, and now that she has it, she's like, ah.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't wait to see more of her. Okay, so real quick, my most marvelous moment is right at the top. Susie gets that phone call from Rose, which I love that Rose and I am so here for Rose and Susie's relationship. Like I love it so much. They're giving me exactly all the things that I want every time they have Susie and Rose together. And so Susie gets this phone call. She gets woke, and we all know how much Susie hates being woken up too early in the morning, and she goes, "God damn it, who convinced you?" She's like wrapped in her top sheet, and she's like, "Whoever convinced me to use a top sheet?"
That was
And
good.
she answers the phone, and Rose says, "Miriam is very ill." And she goes, "No, she doesn't get it till the 14th. I have it marked on the calendar." And she's got like a big red circle around the 14th, which I think is funny because also the show came out on the 14th, or it actually came out on the 13th, but I don't know if that was intentional, but it obviously wasn't intentional. But I love that, Susie is keeping track of Midge's period. Just these little details of their relationship that are so fitting. So perfect.
And it's funny, your marvelous moment and Erica's, like, it kind of made me wonder if they put those together on purpose with the phrasing of that I definitely feel like we could go into once we get more into the episode.
Yeah, so let's start getting into the episode. Let's just start with the Midge storyline, I guess, and that time jump. We open up the first episode in 1981. Esther's in therapy. She is going to med school. She kind of hates her mom in the same way Midge hates Rose. And yeah, so let's hear, Kara, what did you think of this whole time jump world?
I thought it was fantastic that Esther was in therapy, because of course she is. And in the Amy Sherman Palladino and the Palladinos universe, I feel like there's such a kind of funny tendency to neglect the children.
Yeah.
And the emotional and mental well-being of the children. So the fact that Esther's in therapy was just kind of perfect for me. But I thought it was interesting how she's sitting there trying to work on a molecular kinetic sequence to figure out how to use DNA mutations to change the trajectory of disease. And right at the end of, her therapy sequence, it cuts to this opening with Rose calling Susie and saying Midge is very ill, or Miriam's ill. And I was like, I wonder if that's a little bit of foreshadowing for the future.
Good one. Good call. Yeah.
It was just that whole therapy scene. It made me feel like the Palladinos are a little more aware of, what we all think about their treatment of children in their shows.
Oh, they're so aware. Yeah.
It makes me so happy. But I was like, of course Esther's in therapy. And Ethan is essentially, as we see later, out there doing his own thing. That's probably his own form of therapy. But
yeah. And I have thoughts about that too. I haven't fallen in love with this whole flash forward thing yet. I don't I don't love it, I have to say. And I think maybe it's because I want to have my hopes. Let me have my hopes and dreams, please. And by showing me so much of the future, it almost, I don't want to say like it ruins the show. It doesn't, but it I'm thinking to myself, oh, maybe this is going to happen. Well, no, I know that's not going to happen because I've seen the flash forward. So obviously this is what's to come. And oh God, I think it's just because it's not what I wanted for Midge so much. Yeah. I mean, we're going to get there in episode 2, but sticking with just episode 1, what we have here with Esther, I think it's strange to start it off with Esther because, like you're saying, this whole show is kind of built around this running joke of the kids don't matter. They're these two are the worst parents, and it's in interviews with Rachel Brosnahan and oh gosh, now his name is escaping me. Sagan. I know his last name is Sagan. Michael Sagan? Is that his name? Michael Sagan, yes. They have said in interviews that these two are the worst parents, and if this were modern day, probably they wouldn't have had kids. They probably shouldn't have had kids. And yeah, it's a big joke that like no one cares about the kids, and they spend zero time with their children, and they pawn them off on babysitters and Abe and Rose, and even Abe and Rose, like Abe kind of hates the kids. He's like, I can't even pretend to care. You know, I just go away. And Rose, yeah, like what kind of mother was she? What kind of relationship? She doesn't have a very strong bond. It doesn't, well, I don't know. I mean, Midge kind of, I feel like she, at the beginning of the show, aspired to be Rose, but they have this contention between them, you know? So I think it was odd to me that we got Esther all of a sudden because I haven't grown at all to care about her over 4 seasons. Just the opposite. I've made it a thing in my mind to just kind of like disregard Esther and Ethan. And that's the funny of it. And so it got a little too serious for me and a little too real. And I'm like, why? Why are we getting this, you know? But I did love so much of it because she's quite the chip off the old block, you know, just like Midge is so like Rose. And it's such a big part of the show that Midge and Rose are so much alike, but they can't see eye to eye ever. But they're so similar. They have so much more in common than they would ever admit. You know, and just like Midge, we see Esther is very self-important. She makes no bones about how great she is, you know. Which is like the very first episode we get of Midge. She's giving that wedding speech and she's like, who does things like this? I do.
Oh yeah,
because I'm me. And she's just shameless, like self-promotion. And that was shown like when she grabbed a file off the therapist's desk and writes on something that's not hers because what she has to write is that important, you know. So yeah, anyway, I'm rambling at this point, but
it was surprising to jump right into Esther.
Yeah.
Like I did the same thing that you did, Erica. I was like, did I hit the wrong show? I was like, what is happening right now? Well, and it's the same show. This is the one where Midge says, you know, the kids can go fuck themselves.
Yeah. That was like, oh my God. And then Abe goes, like, and no, they won't.
No, they will not.
They will not.
But I was just like, it is an interesting choice. Like, I'm kind of curious to see how it plays out more in this season because it does feel completely out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But I'm open.
I'm open.
Trying to keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't hate it, but I don't love it. Yeah.
It's kind of taking us out of the fantasy. Like I mean, at least myself personally, I know Midge is not 100% the most likable character, but she's very flawed. She has her heads up in the clouds a lot and often, and she's very kind of positive and very driven, but yet, like, you know, and I don't know, I know this is kind of going to a different point, but like, I think that there are times where she does recognize that she's made a mistake and tries to make those amends. And I'm glad for it because that's a big problem. Like she's made some awful choices throughout the seasons and, you know, but it's okay to make mistakes as long as you recognize it and you try to, you know, either better yourself or make amends. But I don't know if that's kind of be the oversight of what she's trying to do with her kids now. But yeah, I agree with you, Jade, though. Like I was like, ooh, I'm not too happy with this. I want the beautiful want her sitting dress. I want those moments.
Yeah.
I want happiness and silliness but it was very dark. It's definitely more of a dark turn for our opening scene.
Yeah. I know. Every time those opening scenes come up and it's a flashback, I get a little like I not cringe, but like I kind of like I watch watching like through my fingers. I'm like, I don't know that I want to. And then rewatching it because I did get to rewatch all of these episodes. On the rewatch, I was kind of like I could feel my excitement diminish when I had to rewatch that flash forward. But anyway. Yeah. Moving on to what else is going on with Midge. When we do get back to the 60s, she's suffering from hypothermia. And how and why? That was a fucking long ass walk in the snow. Like, was she just frozen in front of that billboard? Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're improperly dressed and you got those, you know, shoes on that you're standing in the snow. But it feels like you'd have to be in the snow for a really long time to get hypothermia and like have your toes turn black. Like what? I believe
she said she couldn't find a cab, so she walked home. So I mean, I'm not sure how far Carnegie Hall is from her apartment.
The Upper West Side.
Yeah,
far. It's far.
Yeah, so that gives us a little bit.
Walking in heels in a snowstorm is far.
Yeah, and I also wanted to ask you this, and I know this is I don't want to go off this on a tangent. I'm like, that's a heck of a blizzard for November. Even in New York. Because I'm like, I don't know if we've ever had such a blizzard in the East Coast, at least in that part of the East Coast, but whatever, it's okay. Because I was very confused with the time frame. I'm like, wow, that looks like there's like, you know, a good like 6 inches on the ground.
Well, and it's hard. It's going to be hard for me to fight bringing up all of the Palladino-isms, but there are just so many things. Well, there are so many parallels with Gilmore Girls that just keep popping up. Like, I'm half expecting Midge to end up in therapy with Esther because in A Year in the Life and Gilmore Girls, that was a thing they explored with, you know, the mothers and daughter in therapy. Yeah. But snow is also like this huge transformative event in the Gilmore Girls universe a lot. And I couldn't help but think of that in, you know, Maisel, where this really is a huge turning point for her. She, you know, had that kind of come to Jesus talk with Lenny and gets stuck in the snow. And now it seems like she's finally woken up.
She's woken up. Yeah. And that's kind of the next thing that she goes into with Susie. She wants that Tony Bennett gig now, and Susie's like, "Yeah, that ship has sailed. glad that you've come to your senses, but no, we ain't getting that." She said their second choice is ironing their show pants as we speak. I'm like, yeah, you got a chance to work with Tony Bennett, but you know, we get the flash forward later, and she did eventually get to work with Tony Bennett. So. Who didn't she get to work with? You know, we'll get there. But okay, so going forward with Midge, Lenny, we have this gorgeous scene with her and Lenny in this orange hallway at the airport. God, that was beautiful to look at, wasn't it? That was
so cool.
So cool.
I think, you know, if I can ever have an opportunity to go to the TWA and stay there, because I know it's a hotel now, but that is, it was so beautiful, and they were playing Till There Was You, and it was a gorgeous scene. I agree with you.
Yeah.
The chemistry between those two. Yeah. Like, I felt, for whatever reason, like more than any other moment, I think, in the first episode, seeing them talk, I felt so sucked in. And I was just like, yes. It was just, and knowing, I think, you know, the historical background of Lenny Bruce, like once he's goes off to the West Coast and lives in LA and gets, unfortunately, deeper and deeper into addiction, in him kind of parting from her made me really upset. I was like, I can't cry. I was like, this is not going to happen this early on in the show.
I know.
But it just, I don't know. They seem so real with each other that it's always impactful watching them on screen.
Luke Kirby does such an incredible job with that role. Such a difficult job. What an undertaking. Oh my God, all my respect in the world to that guy. Seriously. There's a cool video. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I think I sent it to you. Yeah, I definitely sent it to you. The comparison that someone did on YouTube between Luke Kirby and the real Lenny Bruce. And
that was neat.
You can just see how the amount of work that he must have put into that. What a gift as an actor to get that role, because you must just be so scared. But as an actor, when you're scared, you often do your best work. That's how I always feel. Because it's just these are the moments that you live for. And these are the moments that you always kind of secretly hope will happen. But then when it does happen, you're like, fuck, this has happened. Holy shit, how am I going to do this? And I can only imagine like the balls on this guy for pursuing. And when you see him side by side with the real Lenny Bruce, and you see that he's not doing an exact imitation, he is making it his own, but he's honoring so much of the truth of Lenny Bruce. It's just brilliant. Like, I could go on. I'm, listeners, search that on YouTube. I'll link it in the show notes, that video, because it's truly amazing. It's, even if you could only watch part of it, it's really cool. So, yeah. Okay. So we get this. Anything else you guys wanted to say about that moment before we move off of it? Because I know that Lenny is going to come back, right? Like,
he has to.
Yeah, he's coming back.
I hope so. It felt like they were kind of like, closing some plot lines, like, here and there. Not conveniently, but I hope not.
I hope not too. I hope that we don't just hear. I really, this is what I really hope doesn't happen. I hope that Midge doesn't one day soon, after we get a couple of years of a time jump. I don't know if how closely they're going to honor his actual real life, but he didn't have that many more years left, in real time. So this is 1961. There's only like 5 more years to play around with of life for the real Lenny Bruce. So I hope that the next thing we see with him is not Midge picks up a newspaper and sees the tragedy of Lenny Bruce. I really hope that he does come back, because we're getting this departure of him. He's going off to spend some time with his daughter, and Midge has been woken up by her talk with him. It feels like they both learned something from each other.
Yeah.
Because you remember Lenny Bruce, and I do kind of want to talk about this. Hopefully it's not too in detail and too off topic, but that weird moment where Lenny woke up in Midge's apartment when she like plucked him off the sidewalk at the end of one of the episodes in season 4, and then he wakes up and he like freaks out and he's like, I don't like kids. I don't want to be around kids and all these the potty training song and like, what the fuck is going on? And he like I was like, why are you reacting so? It's because he doesn't want to think of Midge as a mom. He doesn't want to. He wants her to be the dark, seedy comic, girl that he has a thing for. And it's like he has a real aversion to being a daddy and seeing Midge as mommy. And it feels like Midge feels the same way too, but Midge has she's a mom. Like, it's built into her. This is a part of my life. I've accepted it. Up until not very long ago, she thought that this was her life, like being a mom. She's going to be Rose, But it feels like now the time that he has spent with Midge has taught him, okay, maybe I do want to be a dad. Maybe I shouldn't, just
keep on running away.
Yeah, keep on running away. Yeah. So.
Well, I thought it was interesting to like when they first run into each other and he kind of starts to apologize almost for not, calling or reaching out after they slept together. And she goes, no, we don't do that. Yeah. I read an article, or it was a portion of an interview with Rachel Brosnahan, and she said she saw that as Midge being embarrassed at, their last interaction. Like, she was embarrassed for not taking that job and for putting him in that position and all of that. And I thought that was interesting because when I don't know, for whatever reason, when I watched it, I didn't see her as embarrassed or ashamed or anything like that. It almost seemed like she was accepting, like, no, we had our moment. It did what it needed to do. Like, we're both moving on, and that's that.
Yeah, like she had the emotional attachment of a typical male, and he had the emotional reaction of a typical female,
That's exactly how I saw it. I was just like, that's interesting. But
it was Midge's.
It's always fun.
It was Midge's masking of her kind of embarrassment. Yeah, I mean, now that you say that, I didn't know that, and that's very interesting. I can. It kind of does fit in my mind though. Now there are so many layers.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
it just makes it more real. Like, I love having that extra layer from, what Rachel's motivations were thinking about when she played that scene.
Right.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It's just so good.
I know, so good.
It was. I mean, the only other thing about them is like they both kind of self-sabotage each other, and especially like now, and he, the way we saw him in the hallway, he just was like so scattered. He's shopping his papers. He looks just so broken and defeated. And it's hard, like, even when he's talking about like this, like he's renting a house in LA and he's going to spend some time with his daughter. And there's just like, those seem like really nice things, like to get away from all the legal trouble he has and different things. But there was definitely sadness in his voice. And it was a really, like you said, it was a really sad moment.
I know.
To kind of deal with it.
I don't
it
want
feel...
it had the sense to me, you guys, like I don't want to say it because I don't want it to be true, but it had the sense to me like it was a goodbye moment with Lenny, like for us as viewers, like just the beauty of that orange hallway, the way that like the last thing Midge said is like, I won't blow it. She promised him. She made a promise to him. Like he's got this guardian angel. Like Susie has said, like he's her champion. Like he's her teacher. He's her role model. But at the very same time, Midge is those things to him. They both lean on each other so equally. They have this really interesting relationship. But like you just said, Erica, they're bad for each other, and like they should not be together, I don't think. And yeah, oh God, I hope it's not goodbye for Luke Kirby and for Lenny Bruce's storyline in the show. I really hope that that's not the last we see of him. But I have like this feeling. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, let's hope for that.
I know. I'm like, please don't put it in a flash forward because let me have my dreams, my hopes and dreams.
I want to like those flash forwards.
I know. Yeah. And I know it's coming. Like Alex Borstein has said in interviews that she got prosthetics on, and so I feel like it's episode 4. I feel like we're gonna get a flash forward with first thing is Susie, and I'm kind of more here for that. I don't know why. That sounds like I want to know. I want to see it.
Yeah,
yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, okay. So more about Midge. So she's back at the Wolford. She's willing to take any job now. Smart girl. She says that her stand-up is rusty, and Gordon Ford catches her act, and he asks her to be on the writing staff. And there's some great moments at the Wolford there with Susie, which we'll get into when we start talking about Susie. But as far as Midge goes, he asked her to be on the writing staff, and then I do love that moment where the offer is put on the table and she flashes. They do that flash, and she remembers standing in the snow, and she sees the sign, the Gordon Ford sign, but she sees it as "Go Forward," and it's title of the episode. And so she, she's come to her senses, and she's like, "I'm in. I trust you, Susie." She's letting Susie manage her. How do we feel about this? Without getting too much into what happens in episode 2.
I just immediately did not like the way Gordon was looking at her and watching her. I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Special.
I felt that way too. I did too. I even wrote down like in my notes, like he seemed more like kind of like he was trying to flirt with her a little bit. And, and Midge is just like her. She's just in game mode, like that. She just wants a job and work with him, and
she just wants to be fucking taken seriously as a comic. And I love Midge's attitude toward it, though. She's just like, you remember when they her and doctor guy that she was engaged to. His name is now escaping me. Dr. Benjamin. They go to buy the art from that crazy artist, and and Midge is just like, it's okay, let him grope me a little, and then he'll sell you a painting. Midge she's got such a thick skin. She's like, a day without getting groped in the subway, that's like a day without coffee in the morning. She's just she's such a woman.
That almost made it as my favorite moment, just of how like pertinent and relevant that is.
Yeah.
I was just like, yep. Everybody's been there. Yep. We all know what that's like.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I'm a chick in show business, and I hate to say like we've come so far, we have, but we've come so very not far at the same time. And the casting couch is very real. Sex appeal does get you work, and yeah, it's a shitty reality, but
it's a constant reminder every single day, no matter where we're at.
Yeah. So Midge, I didn't notice it at first on first watch that he was kind of giving her that eye until I watched all 3 episodes, and then I rewatched, and I'm like, oh, and he sees her in a strip club, and so yeah, Gordon Ford is not my favorite. He's not my favorite character at all, which we'll get into.
Well, and I don't know how much of that was influenced too by, I love the show Veep, and he plays Dan Egan on that show, and Dan is kind of this womanizing figure, so I don't know how much of that I projected onto this character, but it turns out that might not be all that far off.
Yeah,
so
right.
I just wanted to put that I don't know enough about Johnny Carson, but I know a lot of articles are like, oh, they're comparing him to like Johnny Carson. But I've seen like other things like, no. He is not to be compared to Johnny Carson. So I don't know if it's because of what the storyline's going to be going towards. So I guess we have to see what happens.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the Ford show. I read that the Ford show was the actual show that they're kind of taking the Gordon Ford that's what inspired it. And so the Ford show, which was on in the 60s, was sponsored by the Ford Motor Company. It was a variety show hosted by the singer-performer Tennessee Ernie Ford, which is funny that his last name was Ford, which had nothing to do with the fact that the show was named Ford. It was just a coincidence because it was named Ford after Ford Motor Company. So that's where that comes from. And that show was pretty groundbreaking because it was like the first show to feature Charles Schultz's Peanuts characters in like animated segments. And they closed every show with like a gospel number. Yeah, it was a controversial show, but it became such a huge thing. And when Tennessee Ernie Ford decided to leave as host, they just ended the show because they knew that they couldn't get someone of his caliber to like be a host again. So yeah, it's responsible though for bringing a lot of like inspirational, groundbreaking music and all kinds of entertainment to mainstream. So
that's really cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so I just wanted to say one more thing about Midge agreeing to let Susie manage her, because something that happened earlier on with Midge's character that made me not love her and made me go like, oh, Midge, why you gotta be this person? Was when she was like, you're my manager, manage me, make me a headliner, make me Lenny Bruce, let's change the business. That's such pressure to put on Susie, another woman who's just starting out in the bit. They're both on the same page. Like they're both figuring it out as they go, It's just so not fair. And I did not like Midge in those moments. So I'm really like, yes, Midge, thank you. Let Susie do her freaking job. Like she puts Susie between such a rock and a hard place, with what do I do with you? Like I can't get anyone to come see you. And which is very funny because she was trying to get Mike Carr to come see her act. And she's like, I got no fucking place for you to see her, because I can't, invite you to the Wolford to see her at the titty bar, And so just when Midge agrees to do gigs that are not her headlining gigs, of course, who shows up at the titty bar? Gordon Ford, It's like, what a strange little turn of events that is, but.
Anything with Mike makes me happy just because, that's Rachel Brosnahan's husband. And so watching them interact or like him and Susie, it's just
it's
gold.
Great. Yep. So good.
He's hilarious.
All right. So let's move on to Susie. So we, at the top of episode 1 with Susie, I was saying, I love that the Rose and Susie bond. So Rose knows who to go to when she needs someone to speak Midge's language. We need someone to interpret for us. You speak Miriam's language, and you're familiar with all that showbiz patois.
That was so funny. And Susie was like really sweet to Midge in that moment, like in a Susie way. Like when she was like, you slept with Tony Bennett? It's like, when did you meet Tony Bennett? But then hearing her say, like, I was so stupid, like, how could I say, like, make me a headliner, no opening acts. And Susie's like, it's not all stupid. Like, being able to say what you want to say is good. And I liked how she kind of came in and supported her and reinforced her in that moment, as opposed to leaning all into, the potential comedy of the situation.
Right.
But it just, she loves her.
She does.
And she wants to see her do well.
But she should have not have mentioned the toe.
God, the toe.
I can't unsee that toe, Rose.
That was so... She's like...
pink little cherub.
Yeah.
She's like over there putting her head between her knees, like, oh no.
Yeah.
That was funny.
And Rose is like, well, but without it, fitting into narrower shoes will actually be easier without it. So lemonade.
Lemonade.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So then Susie goes to Mike Carr to try to get him to see Midge. And he has her thrown out. And then, okay, there was this moment, though, when Susie was at the studio trying to, she has this really funny moment with Mike Carr where she's like, come over here. And Mike's like, no. And he's like, get out of here. And they're like mouthing, during the taping of the show to each other. There's a moment where Susie hears, as she's being thrown out, she was escorted to an elevator. She hears a woman at the studio talking about a Barbatine vase. And I was like, what does this mean? And she she hears this voice and she tries to follow this woman. And it says if you have the closed captioning on, it says like the woman's name is Hetty, who's speaking. And I'm like,
yes,
Hetty?
I remember.
Right.
I was like thinking of Hetty Lamar instantly, but then of course,
Right. But Amazon.
And it happened so quick and then nothing happened.
Yeah, right.
Did you?
So Amazon has this thing where when you hover your mouse, it tells you who's in the scene, like the cast of whoever's talking. And I saw Hetty on my rewatch. Hetty is Nina Arianda. And I was like, oh, so Nina Arianda is an amazing theater actor. I've been in love with her for years, ever since the first time I saw her on Broadway in Venus in Fur. She's incredible. And I'm so glad to see her on my screen. I'm like, yes, Nina Arianda needs to be doing television, movies, whatever, more of that. She's amazing. So yeah, there's more to come about her. So I'm just going to say that is who Hetty is. We see more of it the end of episode 3. But yeah.
I was thankful that they kind of made that kind of glaring late, like, hey, pay attention. Like, why are we showing you this?
Yeah, I was just like, I rewatched that moment. I was like, wait, let me rewind. Did I miss something? I was very confused by that. And I was like, why did her ears perk up so much when she heard that thing that woman said? I'm like, what? I still don't know that I fully understand this moment. Do you guys have any
I mean, other than her recognition of her in Gordon's office as his wife later on. I was like,
that's what I was going to say. That's what we get in episode 3.
And we can, cut, I don't know how much we want to talk about that, but I was like, so are they implying that Susie has had some sort of interaction with her in the past that maybe didn't go so well?
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
Like, what the hell happened to make her? And it looked like she didn't look thrilled to see her. So it made me wonder. I was like, I would love to know if there's...
She has quite
some
the reaction.
History.
Right.
There might be some history there.
I can only imagine.
It made me wonder if it was gaslight related or possibly, they have barely, frustratingly, just a little bit touched on Susie's sexuality.
I know. That's where my mind went too.
But even Susie's history of her being a pianist and what else? Oh gosh, these little these little flashes of her her background. What doesn't she have a degree, like a law degree or something?
I think that was a joke.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know.
I do know.
But it was one of those things where we never got it confirmed whether or not it is actually a joke. And I wouldn't put it past Susie to actually have that be true. Like, who knows?
Maybe she had this relationship with her in college or something. We'll find out.
Oh,
who knows?
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
They've said in interviews, Susie's backstory and her real, her life before Midge is it's on a need to know basis for Midge and for the audience. And I feel like every little bit of Susie that we get is gold. I'm like, give me more Susie. I want to know. Yeah, I would love Susie the prequel.
Yes.
Love that.
Seriously.
Look, if they could do it for Bridgerton, they can do it with Maisel.
I know, right? So, so Susie's stalking Mike car, I guess.
With the Christmas tree.
Yeah,
pretty
yeah. God, both Susie and Midge, they got some big mouths on them that can kind of tend to get them into trouble, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like Susie tries to corrupt Mike Carr's kids.
Offering to take them to go see Spartacus was so funny. He's like, did you tell them you were going to take them to see Spartacus? And she's like, maybe.
Yeah.
He also got them the hot cider and just ruined and made him pick the worst tree on the lot. Yeah.
And she couldn't help but say, like, none of your kids really look like you. Like, you just couldn't help yourself, could you, Susie?
No,
not smart.
Then shouting that Santa's not real. Yeah. She just kept on going. Couldn't stop.
Yep. Yeah. It's something her and Midge have in common. Like, they're both expert bridge burners.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, so I want to talk a little bit about Alfie here too, because I feel like Alfie falls under like the Susie category. So there's this really funny bit as well where like Susie cracks her tooth on a Thanksgiving roll on Fred's hard as rock rolls or whatever they call them. You got to soak them in water for 10 minutes.
But obviously you're supposed to soak them in water for 10 minutes.
Did you not know that? Yeah. She's like, no, I didn't fucking know that. And yeah, she refuses to go to the dentist. And I was like, and that didn't go anywhere other than the fact that it was just funny. I could hear Amy Sherman Palladino and Dan Palladino just like cracking up in the writer's room writing this thing for Susie, because there's a moment where she was saying to Midge, you got to get Alfie on a plane. And she's like, and she's holding her tooth because like the cold air or whatever is like hurting it. So she's like got her finger over it and she's like, and don't let him go to the bathroom because he'll flush himself down the toilet. He's slippery. Just like the way she said slippery.
I love Alfie though.
Yeah.
He's so funny.
Yeah. I mean, Alfie is he's a little, I don't know though. He's a
little out there.
Well, he's a little, I feel like he's difficult. He's kind of bratty. He's kind of ungrateful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Susie's
quite
done so
neurodiverse.
much.
He's quite the neurodiverse person.
Yes.
But I did love the scene between him and Midge when she offered the teddy bear.
That was sweet. And when he said bigger than Houdini, he was like, you could be bigger than Houdini. He's like, I'm already bigger than Houdini. He was tiny. That's why he could fit into that box. And just that too. Like the neurodivergence was basically emanating from him at that point with that conversation.
And my favorite moment, and I actually would have possibly put this in a Marvelous moment, is when they gave him the child tag to put in the airplane.
And he was
Did he ever make it?
And he was so happy about that. He's like, I won't have to explain anything.
Yes.
It's like a little card.
I felt that.
Yeah.
I want one of those passes the next time I fly.
I know. Just take care of me on the flight. Yeah, but you know, Susie's being such a good manager, and she's got him. She scraped him off the sidewalk. You know, cleaned him up, let him dry out in her office. She believed in him when no one else did, and Midge is speaking some mad truth. You know, she's like, "You're getting top billing at a 2,000 seat theater. You're headlining in Vegas with great accommodations. Like, wake up, dude! Don't believe this guy that says, oh yeah, Susie Meyerson's an elevator." You know, it's like, screw you, man.
Yeah,
I
was glad that Midge stood up for her in that moment, because she's right. Like, it's real easy to see somebody once they've already been kind of plucked from the crowd and their talent's been showcased. And she saw him literally like hanging around a bar and
getting beaten up and
yeah. So then so there, I wanted to say there's a moment where in the strip club where Susie is watching Midge kind of like scared, like, don't say tittins, because she knows Gordon Ford is in the audience, and she's like, what do I do? Think like Midge. Shit, fuck, cock. Why are the lights changing? Am I having a stroke? And yeah, and then Susie's I love this episode because it just shows like Susie is after that talk with Harry Drake, who's kind of like Susie's little guardian angel. That scene in episode 4 where Harry's like, don't listen to her, Susie, be her manager. Like, you know, she can't just play basket houses and she can't, Midge doesn't know what she's doing. She's talent. You're the manager. Be the manager. It did feel like a little Deus Ex, to have Harry Drake all of a sudden be so helpful. And I was like, this is a little hard to believe that would, but whatever. Like, it needed to happen.
Especially because he was such a shithead in the earlier parts.
Yeah, that scene was funny.
Them.
Yeah, that scene was funny to me. Like, why does he all of a sudden care so much about helping Susie? But whatever, I'm glad he did. And as much as I think that Susie needs to cool it a little with like, well, I mean, I don't know. I guess she tried to be kind to Mike, and Mike hates everybody. Mike is except his kids and Christmas trees. I mean, he like literally, he's such a pessimist about everything. Like, he's like, I hope you die. Like to that guy George, he's like, man, I hope he dies. Yeah. It's like, who the fuck says these things?
Yeah, he needs some anger management.
Yeah, and when Susie gets her way and she finds, Gordon offers Midge the job, she like blows an ice cube at Mike and like double flips him off, which was hilarious to me.
Oh, like when was it when he tells Midge, and that's in the second episode, but we'll hold off for that.
Okay, so
you made me think of the double fifth.
Yeah.
And for listeners, I just gave my double middle finger. Sorry if you couldn't see that.
Okay, so let's move on to Joel, shall we?
Oh, Joel.
Oh, Joel. This episode was hard.
Yeah, talk about it.
I cannot stand him, but I felt for him so much in this episode. And I think part of that is because the actor who plays Joel, was it Michael? How do you say his last name? Zagan, something like that. He just does such a good job portraying like just being utterly shattered. And I think we've seen that from him a few times now over this series, but he is definitely in a rough spot in this episode.
Yeah. So I have thoughts about Joel, and like it's weird because I just don't want to like him, but on rewatch I was like, okay, actually
he's charming.
Yeah.
He, as an actor,
why
I
she
love.
fell for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's growing. Yeah, but you don't want to like Joel, like, because he was a shithead from the very beginning. He was weak and I didn't care for him, but I feel like we're actually seeing character growth from him now. And it's hard not to be sympathetic to him at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want them to get, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was just going to say, I don't want them to get back together. I've made that decision. I really don't want them to have this, like, they realize
Joel and May? Oh, no, you mean Joel
Midge.
and Midge. Yeah.
No, right, I don't want them to get back together. But I think that as co-parenting, they've done it with, I guess, as best as they could possibly do it within the circumstances.
Yeah.
But
When he said, was it Moish that was kind of making comments to Midge during the Thanksgiving dinner? And Joel says, don't talk to Midge that way.
Yeah.
Like just all of a sudden, I was like, yes.
It's these moments, right, with Joel where he's so supportive of Midge. And although he's like, I can't watch you do this and I can't be your man. I can't be that man behind this kind of woman. I want to be your friend, your best friend, and support the shit out of you because she's funny. She is fucking funny. When he beat up that guy for Midge and he's like, I mean, I fell in love with him a little, and on my first time I watched the show, I did not feel that way. I was like, yeah, Joel, whatever,
Nope.
too little, too late. I was very harsh,
Exactly.
but on my rewatch, I'm like, no, damn, I love you, man. Like he's human. He's human, and I think go ahead.
That's what it is. No, just you saying he's human, it just kind of clicked because seeing him over the seasons and then going back and watching that moment where he beat the crap out of that guy, it's like, he's struggling. Like, yes, he made some mistakes and some really bad choices and he has some sort of issue.
He has a horribly fragile ego. It's horribly fragile, right? But I dislike Joel because I see the worst parts of me in Joel. And that's why it's like, be honest here, Jade, be honest. Why do you really hate him?
Hard.
you know?
Yeah.
He supports her. He so badly wishes it could be him.
Yeah.
But he still recognizes that she's great and she deserves to be seen as great and she deserves to be supported.
And he never complains the whole time that he has to take care of the kids and restart his whole life when she's touring with Shai Baldwin. He never complains. He's like, no,
true.
you go after it, girl.
Yeah.
Like, do it. I believe in you. I know. I love that he's her cheerleader like that. And I love them as friends. I love their relationship. I'm really, I'll say it. I love it. I love Joel. I do. Like, I hate him so much. And that season 1, man, you could not have gotten me to change my mind about my opinion. Hell no. Hell no.
Yep.
What a dick. Unforgivable, sir. Go and you go die. Like, no, you cannot come in to my house. No. Go away, Joel. I hated him.
He's grown on me.
He's grown on me.
I'll admit it.
And and like I said, the actor, Michael Zagan it's got something to him, you know?
Yeah, he's pretty special.
Good.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's talk about him and May. And I knew, right? I knew. So, I was going to say, so I would have predicted, I had it written down as a prediction when I did my rewatch of season 1 through 4 to get ready. I was like, oh man, I predict that Midge and Joel are going to get back together at the end of season 5. Like, that's where we're going to be. I know it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel like they could make it work, but I don't want that to be it, you know? But now we know that that's not it. We know because we got flash forward. So, okay, thank God.
Yeah.
But I did know at the end of season 4, I did write in my predictions before I saw episode 1, I was like, May's going to get an abortion. I know it.
Yeah.
I can feel it.
Yeah.
I can feel it in my bones.
Well, the way she kept saying, I'm supposed to be a doctor. I'm going to be a doctor.
That,
Over and over. I was like, oh, honey.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be
There
rough.
was no chance that she wanted to commit to him.
No.
She was so goal oriented, and it was even before Stephanie Sue became so recognized. It was even not even that. I don't think that this was like a convenience plot line. This is her character. This is what she was always destined to be. She is a pioneer.
Yep.
She is very forward thinking. She's goal driven. She's very modern.
Joel's got a type, don't he?
Yeah.
He sure does. And she's
he knows
like
it too. He's like
2.0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Penny Pan ain't it.
No, she was
Oh,
not.
Penny.
Oh, Penny.
Oh, Penny.
Justice for Penny.
No, because she was
Penny
called,
Pan.
Didn't she
Penny
call Midge a
Pan.
slut in her work?
A tramp.
Yeah, a tramp.
Yes.
I would have like totally slapped her. I was like,
Yeah, I was like,
ew.
I would have decked her.
Yeah, same. But
It's
yeah,
just like, how
But it's
dare
like-
you sleep with your husband?
But it's like with but God, that's so good. We gotta stay on topic, guys. We gotta stay on
Yeah.
topic. But yeah, no, with
we're
with
avoiding
that
the
whole thing,
dark
it's like,
topics.
Yeah, with that whole thing with Penny Pan, it's like it's too easy though. Pick on someone your own size, Midge, and she knew it. She's like, I'm not even gonna. She just watched Penny just struggle and be Altman and just like, oh honey,
Yeah.
Midge is like, no matter what, even though I'm totally the wronged woman here, like I feel bad for you.
Mhm.
Anyway, okay, good old Penny.
Yeah,
But
but
so okay, so let's talk about this scene with May because this was almost my most marvelous moment, but I'm like, how can it be my most marvelous moment when it's so not marvelous? But it's my most marvelous moment because the acting that's happening here. When she said, I can't have it all, it's not the way the world works. I mean, the writing of this is they're capturing a moment in time. This, in such a small scene, they're saying so much about the world. And she says to him, you're so you. I never saw you coming. And it's true. She had one job, she's supposed to make the club fail. And nope, didn't do that. You were just too damn successful. And then you were just too damn sweet. And God damn it, I think I'm in love with you. And shit, I'm pregnant. And no. And yeah. Yeah.
But it's like thinking about, her character trying to become a doctor during that time in general, where they're basically, women doctors, I'm assuming, are very, very few and far between.
Oh, yeah.
Dealing with that on top of everything else with her family and business, like there was no way she was going to have that baby. And Joel, once he started getting really excited and telling his family about it, I was like, this is not going to end well for you, buddy.
Yep.
yeah.
As soon
not
as he
good.
started, first of all, you don't make those announcements. Joel,
No.
Joel, where can I start
That
with you?
early.
Yeah, you just for reasons, for reasons. They're kind of
There's
like
many
unwritten
reasons.
rules in the world. Yeah. Yep. So, okay, all right, let's move on to I feel Shirley and Moisha fall in the Joel category. So, we got a lot of them
Yeah.
this season. They're really featuring Moisha and Shirley. They're getting divorced. Okay.
Yeah.
You guys talk for a second.
Yeah.
It was just like the way they announced that was pretty spectacular.
It was yes, that was hilarious.
Like
It was a Shirley announcement. Of course it was. She's amazing.
So
but it was just because he won't retire after his near-death experience last season.
Okay.
I actually felt that a little bit.
What?
I think I would have said the same thing to my husband. Like, you almost freaking die and you're going back to work. Can you sit down a little bit?
Yeah.
I can hear it a little bit, but yeah, they're hilarious. They love each other so much, but they drive each other crazy.
Yeah, I want to know if we're ever going to know what they said to each other. I feel like we're not.
Right.
Amy Sherman and Dan Palladino, they love to do these things where they they make something a thing so much that you're like, oh, this is a thing. It's a clue. I feel like I'm watching like Columbo or something, and I'm like, oh, they're zooming in on that letter opener. Like that's going to be really important and red herring. And so they say these things like, your mother said something to me that she cannot unsay, and then your father said something to me that I never thought another human being would say. And it's like, what did they say? And you're never going to tell us.
Ugh. Gosh.
Yeah, their storyline is silly and a little bit of nonsense. And
Yes.
this is what's funny is Kevin Pollak and Caroline Aaron. So I've met Caroline Aaron. I worked with her for very briefly. Like I didn't meet her in a close way at all, but we did a reading together, a charity reading in New York. And she's what a woman, like what an amazing person. To watch her act live was so cool. And yeah, Kevin Pollak, the great stand-up legend Kevin Pollak, these two